Hey guys, how are you doing? Today's video is going to be all about the latest changes within the UK government and what that would mean for you as a student, worker, or a dependent planning to come into the UK in the last quarter of 2022 or in 2023. Now, as most of y'all are aware, I have started an Instagram account and the handle is Physiotherapy in UK, which I highly recommend you follow because I will be issuing daily updates about all of the recent changes in the UK government, about the UK recession, and things including the HCPC registration and jobs in UK. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram, guys. But today's video is all about the UK's recession and whether you should be coming into the UK considering the recent changes. So let's get right to it. So the first biggest update is that Swella Braverman, the Home Secretary for the UK, has resigned within 43 days of her taking up this particular post. Now, if you have not watched my previous video, which I'm just going to leave the link for right now, you would know that Swella Braverman was the person who was really against the immigration within the UK. She was one of the first people within this particular government to say that she plans to reduce student immigration to less than 1 lakh international students in the next year. Now, her reason for this is obviously that many students would bring along their dependents, and according to her, majority of these dependents would be individuals who have lower skills or who are not as important for the higher skilled roles in the UK. And she felt that this sort of lower skilled people would not be able to actively contribute to the UK's economy and thus facilitate growth. Now, some of the other recommendations from Swella Braverman was obviously that she felt that many universities in the UK should restrict the number of courses that they offer to international students in another way to sort of cut down the student numbers of those planning to come into the UK and study. Many of you all would say, oh, all of this is great, Nikita, but why did she resign? And one of the key reasons for her sort of resignating in the past few days has been that she sent out a really important and confidential mail from her personal email ID, and she has recognized this and put down a resignation by herself. Now, that being said, you need to understand that within the UK, there are some really strict rules and regulations, and according to those, she wasn't able to use her personal email ID to send out this particular confidential information to all the other members of the parliament. So, that being said, the new Home Secretary is Grant Shapps, and we do not know if he is really for immigration, that he is pro immigration, or if he is against immigration within the UK. And I will be releasing information related to his views, his opinions, as soon as they start pouring into the media or as soon as he starts making any sort of new updates. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel if this is your first time here, and definitely check out my other videos. So now coming down to the next biggest update, which is that Liz Truss, the Prime Minister of UK, has recently resigned as of 20th October 2022. Now she has been one of the shortest reigning Prime Ministers in the UK after serving her office for only 44 days. So now, again, if some of y'all have followed my channel or have followed any news about the UK, y'all would know that Liz Truss actually wanted to facilitate immigration within the UK because she thought that this was going to facilitate the economic growth, which would help UK overcome its present recession or any sort of difficulties and boost its economy. So that being said, she was actually a very strong supporter for the immigration for every nationality, including Indians, Nigerians, and so on and so forth. So also, I mean, many of us would be upset that, she's not the prime minister anymore. But what is the reason for this change? So recently, the UK finance minister recently issued a mini budget, and this mini budget had several implications on the UK's economy. Now, as you are all aware, UK is undergoing a massive recession, which is in line with many other international countries, including US and other places. But what actually made it worse is that the mini budget that was supposed to help UK's recession improve, so it was supposed to boost UK's economy, did not do so, and it had actually a very bad reverse effect. Now, this is why the UK pound has fallen even more in the past few days. Now, one of the biggest measures taken by the finance minister and the prime minister, that is Liz Truss, in the last few days was a 45 billion tax cut to the higher paying, that is the richest people in the country of UK. Now, what that essentially did is that it increased the recession within the UK, but also it has caused the pound to fall at even a lower rate than what it was in the past few weeks ago. And overall, it's had a cascade effect on the UK's economy. So, this is the reason why the PM Liz Truss asked her finance minister to resign, and she employed a new finance minister who's Jeremy Hunt. Now, Jeremy Hunt and Liz Truss themselves have tried to reverse the sort of mini budget and all of the steps that have gone into implementing it. And they have done so, and they've retained some of the mini budget steps that they feel would actually help UK's economy. But that being said, I do not want to go into the details of what are the steps and measures, because honestly, it would not affect you unless you are living in the UK for n number of years and you're one of the higher tax paying person. But coming down into her mistake itself, this is what Liz Truss had to say about her
Now, I
mistake.
recognise we have made mistakes. I'm sorry for those mistakes, but I've fixed the mistakes. I've appointed a new Chancellor. We have restored economic stability and fiscal discipline. And what I now want to do is go on and deliver for the public. We were elected on the 2019 manifesto. I'm determined to deliver on that.
Now, following this mistake, Liz Truss admitted that obviously this has impacted UK's economy, and many ministers within her own political party agreed that maybe she's not the best person to represent the country, which is why she was forced to resign from the Prime Minister's seat today, that is on the 20th of October. So now that we've understood the reason why Liz Truss is leaving and all of the implications that that might possibly have on us, let's just understand when this is going to happen. So according to the UK government officials, they have said that they would want the next Prime Minister to replace Liz Truss within the next week itself. And right now, the four main candidates running for being the next Prime Minister is the previous minister, that is Boris Johnson, but also some of the other candidates include Penny Mordaunt, Ben Wallace, and Rishi Sunak. And obviously, as you are aware, Rishi Sunak has been like a personal favorite, and he came really, really close in the last time that the Prime Minister elections were held. But let's just see who is going to win this time's elections and come out as a Prime Minister on top of all of the current turmoil that is undergoing in the UK right now. So now let's just come down to what are the clinical implications for this. So as you are all aware, UK's recession is right now at its peak, a double-digit number, that is 10.1 as of today in October 2022. Now Citibank has actually predicted that this number is going to go up to a high of 18.6% in January 2023, which is just 3 months away, which is going to mean that the UK's recession is going to look even worse in the next few months. So obviously, as someone who's coming into the UK, you would think, what does that essentially mean? So what this means is that UK's economy has shrunk by 11% in the last year, that is in the year 2020. And you would say, Nikita, what does that mean? What does UK's economy shrinking mean? Let me just put that in the context. Even when World War I and World War II happened, UK's economy had not shrunk to the size of 11%. This shrinking was last seen in the UK in the 1700s, when UK was not a developed country, so it had not had industrial revolution, it had not colonized many of the countries in the world, and it was essentially a poor country back then. So as you can see, the UK's economy shrinking to 11% in 2020 means that UK has now seen a state which it had seen almost 3 centuries ago. So now, that being said, I just want to share a few points which I think you should definitely consider, especially if you are planning to come into the UK. Now, that being said, I am not somebody who's planning to promote the UK and say that you should move into the UK. The points that I will be sharing are very subjective. They are my own points, and these points are going to apply to every individual based on their present circumstances. So by no means assume that this is a one size fits all sort of approach, and consider yourself and each point and see if you want to make an informed decision about whether you would like to move into the UK into the next year. So the first point that I definitely want to share is that UK's present economic situation and the job opportunities for every person who's planning to move into the UK. So if you've heard me before, obviously I've said that UK's recession is at its peak and many sort of employees are not getting jobs within the UK. But you need to understand that this sort of difficulty has risen lately in the past few months. So if you've heard this video, you've heard me say that UK's economy has shrunk by 11%. But this has happened because of two major reasons. The first major reason is Brexit. So, when Brexit happened, many of the people in the UK who are from the EU have chosen to resign from their jobs and go back to their home countries. Now, this has obviously created a massive labor shortage within the UK. The second reason is obviously the COVID pandemic, which again led to a great resignation movement within the UK. Now, that being said, there were many jobs that are unoccupied at the minute across multiple sectors and industries, including healthcare, IT, so on and so forth. Now, because of this, the UK economy has not been able to fulfill or to find employees to fill these positions, and so the economy has shrunk even more in the past few years. But if I were to be honest, I would definitely consider this as an opportunity for immigrants to come into the UK, because right now there are over 10 lakh jobs available across different industries, and within the NHS alone there is about 10% of vacancies that are available to employees to fill. So if you are interested and if you are looking to move into the UK and are concerned about finding jobs, I would say that this is an opportunity that maybe you could be using, because employers are actually looking forward to filling these job roles. Now, that being said, let me just make you aware that obviously UK is facing a cost of living crisis at the minute. So, if you are planning to come into the UK, you need to be aware that you need to be slightly strong financially, because you need to be able to provide for yourselves, especially for the initial few months while you are looking for a job or while you are just gaining footing within the UK. Now, the second reason that obviously I think is a very much debated topic in the present times is the study visa and the work visa. So, if you are aware, when you come into the UK to study for a master's course, you would be granted a 1 year study visa followed by a 2 year post study work visa. Now, that being said, your dependents also are given the right to work within the UK unrestricted. So, that is, they can work for a full 40-hour duration while you are on a student or a PSW visa. The similar logic applies for work visas themselves. So, if you are on a work visa, you are allowed to work for the whole duration of the week, but also your dependents are allowed to work for the whole duration. Now, this is one of the key reasons why anybody sort of coming into the UK is allowed to work, as compared to many countries, including US, where the dependents may not be allowed to work for the whole duration of 40 hours. And this, I think, is a major advantage, because your dependent working will also ensure that you meet the costs of living within the UK by providing with money to fulfill your bills, accommodation, or even grocery cost. Now, the third biggest advantage that I definitely think you need to consider is language. Now, if you are aware, many countries, including Canada and other European nations such as Germany, Norway, etc., have recently understood that they have a lot of aging population, that is, majority of their people are retired, and there are a number of job roles that need to be fulfilled. But one of the biggest restrictions for somebody like me, maybe say from India, or maybe even someone from Nigeria or Pakistan or Philippines, would be that we do not know the language, especially when we consider countries such as Germany or Norway or France. And these language barriers create a major restriction in our migration to these countries. Whereas within the UK, because the primary language is English, it would be fairly easy for someone to adapt and relocate to this country, because English is the language that is spoken across many regions in the UK. And the only other sort of language that is spoken more commonly would be Welsh, but that is only in Wales. So if you are considering to move to any other part of the UK, including England or Scotland, you can highly find a good chance of finding a job if you speak English. Now, coming down to the fourth point, and I think this was some of the major reasons why I considered moving into the UK, is because it has a really big cultural diversity within all of its regions, including London and the smaller areas. So, if you know, UK has a really big sort of immigrant population, and it depends, it can be from any place. But that being said, because it is so culturally diverse, it has a really good living environment for different people from all across the globe, because you will definitely find your community within the UK. Now, coming down to the fifth reason, and that is healthcare. As many of y'all are aware, UK has its government healthcare, that is the NHS, which is the National Health Service that provides free healthcare to all people, including students, workers, and people who have citizenship. So, what are the things that are included under the NHS? It includes your basic things, including vaccination, regular doctor appointments, consultant and specialist appointments, and even tests, including blood tests, x rays, MRIs, and other imaging, and even surgical procedures if they are really essential for you. Now, that being said, it makes it really easy for you to access all the sort of healthcare under one single general broad term of the NHS. Now, many countries, including Canada, also offer free healthcare, but what essentially happens is while the UK sort of provides this healthcare from the money that it takes away from you in the form of taxes and NI, in Canada, while the government provides healthcare, it's usually available only in the private sort of setups, and therefore there are many nitty-gritties that are involved in availing for the healthcare. Whereas in the UK, it's very streamlined, very centralized, and very easy. And this has been my personal experience while I've been working in the NHS, but also while I have attended several doctor's appointment or gone for blood test or vaccinations here in London. Now, the last and the final point that I think influences many people across the UK and people who are planning to come into the UK is education. So, if you are aware, UK has a really strong education system that is appreciated by many countries across the globe. But if you have a little one or if you have a baby, you need to be reassured that UK provides free education for all children, including primary and secondary schooling, and you would have to pay for their education only their once in maybe colleges or universities. Now, that being said, if you are an international student planning to come into the UK, this is again a great opportunity for you because UK has many scholarships, including the Sheving Scholarship, Commonwealth Scholarship, and the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. And if you are someone from a middle class background or if you are someone who is not financially well to do, UK is trying to attract many people who are really brilliant in their own respective fields, and you can definitely try to apply under one of these scholarships so that you can come and relocate into the UK but also secure a bright future for yourselves. Now, obviously, the scholarships that are being offered from the UK are not out of the goodness of its heart. It's actually trying to attract a lot of globally talented people so that it can boost its economy and grow its country in the next few years. And this actually shows that the UK is planning a lot of good things just in terms of boosting its economy in the future years, provided it comes out of its recent recession. Now, that being said, this video has highlighted all of the key points that I would want you to think about and see if it's applicable to you. And only if it is, I would ensure that you make this decision to move into the UK. And if you have any doubts, please do not forget to book a one-to-one session with me where we could go over some of these things discussed today. But that's it, you guys. Take care. Bye.